I'm here today with Chief Michael Kochis, who is Warrenton Town Police Chief. He had the great fortune of joining the force a month before the COVID pandemic hit.
So much fun.
It must have been. So you definitely hit the ground running.
Yeah, it was great.
You had COVID, you had budget, obviously it was going to be in a turmoil this year, and then you had the headlines were nothing but law enforcement. So, but looking at your resume, and I see a very extensive and very innovative approach to law enforcement that you've had over the past 20 years. It looks to me like Warrenton is fortunate to have you here. So
I'm fortunate to hear.
I'm glad you think so. So it's mutual.
Yeah, it's a great.
So the topic that we're kind of working with is service to community. And I didn't want to label it one of those lingos like servant leadership or something like that. It was more about individuals that are in our community in places that they have a lot of responsibility, but they also serve. And one thing that I've found with people who serve, they tend to can remember back when you were 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 or 15, sometime when you were younger, that you realized that there was something about service that you were drawn to. And I wonder if you might have a story or a memory of a time like that.
Yeah. So, well, I come from a law enforcement background. My father, I grew up watching my father go to work as a police officer every day, and how much pride he took in serving his community. It was, it was a small town. And, so, my brother, he wound up becoming a police officer. He is today. He's a New Jersey state trooper. And, so it was something that was kind of ingrained in us early on, as young children, is that, that's your responsibility as a citizen in this country is to serve, give back, right? Because it's given so much. So, my father, he was in the Army, served in Vietnam, got out and became a police officer. Well, I graduated high school. I went in the Army. I served overseas, got out, became a police officer. My brother, he went and joined the Army, got out, and he became a police officer. And so I think it was just, those little talks. I don't think there was ever really an aha moment. I'll be honest with you. If you asked people I went to high school with and told them that I'd be a police officer, they'd probably throw something at you and say, no way. I wasn't always the best student or kid in school growing up. But there was it was those conversations that, that while, and I think we all have them as parents, I know I do, where you have all these conversations with your kids, hoping maybe one little nugget will get through to their head. And you're thinking they're just ignoring everything I'm saying. And in reality, they're not, right? Those conversations still matter, even if you think you're talking to yourself. So I try to remember that. So I think it was just a whole combination of conversations and kind of seeing him. So.
Mm-hmm. It seems to be a story that a lot of law enforcement families continue that tradition, it looks like. So there's obviously everybody sees a value in that. So what do you think of service when you think of yourself in service to others? What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, that's why we're here, right? I mean, we're here to serve others. I mean, I'm not to get too far off on religion, right? But I'm a Catholic, and service is what we were taught by, in school from a religious standpoint. But in my role here as the chief of police, I was brought here to serve this community. I was brought here to serve this police department. And I think you have to remind yourself of that because, it's easy to kind of go through the day in and day out monotony of getting this task done, that task done, this deadline and whatnot. And it's easy to sometimes forget, like, okay, well, what am I doing to serve this community? And how does what I'm doing relate to that, So when you talk about like policing and service in policing, there's, you have the service of the community and I have also the service of my officers, right? And both are equally important because if I'm not serving my officers well, they're not going to serve the community well. Okay. So it's important to be like when I talk about communication and creating an environment externally and within the community and within, and how we serve the community, it's equally as important to create those same environments and communicate the same way internally as well. And I have to remind myself of that often, because it's easy to get caught up in so many of the community events and all the proactive and wonderful things that we are doing here at the Warrenton Police Department, and forget that, I still have to communicate with my folks internally, just as much and just as effectively, because if I don't, the service they provide is not going to be up to the standard that the town of Warrenton expects. The other thing I always kind of focus on, and I always keep it close, and the founder of modern day policing, Sir Robert Peel, in 1829, he put out these what they call Peelian principles, and one of the main principles he put out was the community are the police and the police are the community. Now that was 1829, right? But if you really think about what that statement means today, it's so important that we go back to and remember that was one of our founding principles when it comes to policing, and never thinking that we're above the community. We are the community, and the community are us, and so we serve each other, and so that's what it means to me.
Mm-hmm. So how do you manage to do both? We need the real answers here now.
How do you manage to do both? Well, you create a clear vision, right? So the vision that we create needs to be clear for not only my folks, but for the community, right? So everything we do here at the Warrenton Police Department starts with our mission, with our vision. Why are we here? What is our purpose? And then you try to develop structures, I guess, if you will, or processes to hold yourself to those, right? Or guide you. For instance, a strategic plan, right? We just developed our strategic plan. Hope to have it out here shortly. It's been put out to all our folks, and that's a guide, right? And you have a strategic plan, then we have 3 specific strategic priorities. Okay, so everything we do, like we just did our budget process, we forward internally anyway, and every portion of our budget needed to reflect one of our 3 strategic priorities. Okay, if it didn't, then we had to ask ourselves, why is that there? Why are we doing this then? Right? So I guess creating those processes and those structures helps us do that, helps us stay focused, if you will, and then never stop thinking of different and innovative ways to communicate. That's the key, especially during COVID over the last year or so, or 10 months, I guess. We should, as a leader, we're always trying to find different ways to communicate with our folks, to communicate with the community. Well, then COVID hit, and it's like, whoa, okay, let's time to really think outside the box, right? So we've done those things, and we got to continue doing them. And then the biggest part is surrounding yourself with the right people. The people here at the Warrenton Police Department, I have a great police department with great people, and they hold me to task daily, and as I do to them, and we really do work well as a team. So again, it's creating that environment, creating those processes, creating those procedures to know that when I come in each day, hey, this is how this is supposed to work. Boom, boom, boom. This is what we're supposed to do. Boom, boom. It's not rocket science. You just have to do it. So.
Right. So what are your 3 initiatives for yours?
Well, I'm going to pull them up for you right now. Hold on a second.
Oh, great.
Let me get them. I wouldn't say they're initiatives. They're 3 strategic priorities.
Priorities. Okay.
And so you're going to be the first to get it because we haven't put it out yet.
Oh.
But we'll make a little news here today, I guess. Not really.
Yeah, I said so. I got a scoop here we can use.
Yeah, here we go. So how our strategic plan kind of lays out, it starts off with our mission, and then it goes into how it was created, And then it talks about the 21st Century Policing Report. And all that is 6 pillars that lay out 21st century best policing practices, right? And then it gets into our our department strategic priority. So strategic priority 1 is to protect the life, property of citizens, businesses, and visitors of the town of Warrenton, okay? And within that are specific goals that we will do, like real deliverables, right? Like reestablishing our bicycle patrol program, right? Equipping police officers with different breaching equipment to protect for active violent incidents, okay? Certifying officer in accident reconstruction, reducing vehicle fatality. So those specific things fall under that strategic priority 1. Then you get into strategic priority 2, which is enhancing public trust through community and business partnerships and increased transparency. Okay, that goes in. So some of those specific goals that fall under that are, putting our general orders on our website, all our general orders, right? Expanding different community engagement programs, like developing a community police academy, which we are going to be rolling out in the spring of this year. Developing a bicycle safety program. So the specific things that fall into that priority of enhancing public trust through community and business partnerships. And then strategic priority 3 is to identify, enhance, and develop personnel and internal resources, right? Mm-hmm. So dealing with, like for instance, developing a mentoring and leadership program internally, right? Developing an officer wellness program and a physical fitness standard for current employees, not just new applicants. Beginning the process of our CALIA national accreditation. We're currently state accredited, and we've started now are exploring national accreditation. So you'll see, if you see, there's those 3 priorities, and under each one of those priorities, specific goals on how to kind of meet that priority.
Right. And I think what you've just laid out is something that's really important for people to know, that there's so much more going on in a police department than somebody in a car looking to see if you ran a stop sign. So, and all the things that are really important. I'd like to talk a little bit about what's important in this community. You've been here about a year, but you've had to learn an awful lot very quickly, I would imagine, much quicker than normal, is sort of unmet needs that you see from 2 standpoints. From the standpoint of the community, is something that sticks out in your mind that would certainly make your ability to do those 3 initiatives more easily or be successful at them. And then also the unmet needs, something that you use for your own department outside of money. Both answers cannot be money. So,
well, I will say this: we are a well-funded police department. We, the support we get from our town council, the town manager, just our governing body in general is tremendous, and it really is a collaborative effort. I mean, what we do here in the town of Warrenton, and I credit the town manager. She really has kind of set out to ensure that those silos that have always existed in the past between department here, oh, we're only going to do our thing, trying to break those down. She's been clear that that's an initiative, and we're working really hard to do that. And so the support we get financially and just in general, just especially with all that's gone on with police reform over the last year or 10 months or so, having that support has been tremendous. And that's probably the number one thing. If I were to ask, if someone were to ask me, what do you need from that? Just that support. And we have it, and the same from the community. We have such a supportive community that it just makes our job so much easier. But we can't take that for granted. I think the minute we start taking that for granted, that's when you get into trouble, right? Mm-hmm. We can't stop engaging and involving our community. What are some of the things we need? Well, one of the issues, and again, we're talking COVID and we're talking budgets, right? Yeah. But we've, our staffing levels as a police department has remained the same for a long time. here in the town of Warrenton, but the town has grown, right? So, but not only with the police department, I think in town government in general, I think, we got to catch up, because to do certain things, to have an ambitious agenda as a town, you need people to do that stuff, right? Like real live people with to carry out these different initiatives, if you will. Mm-hmm. So whether it be police officers, because the increase in traffic complaints, or the increase in special events that brings revenue into the town, and covering all of those, to like procurement. Someone has to we need a procurement officer, right? Somebody needs to do that stuff to do these different initiatives. So, but I will tell you in general, we're supported and really well, and it's helpful. I don't have a ton of needs. I just think in general, getting our staffing levels to where they need to be, it's going to take time. I hope to do a staffing study eventually, because I can't just go and say, I need more people. I want some data behind that, but again, everything kind of got the brakes put on it as we were planning to do a staffing study and whatnot, because, COVID, we had a budget, right? People forget, yes, this is a health crisis, but this is also a financial crisis, right? I mean, you have business owners that are losing their businesses, people losing their jobs, right? So we had to kind of pivot, midstream of our budget process and create a whole different budget in a matter of, a week or two. So there's challenges there, but we'll get there because we have the right foundation. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you were to think about leadership, we'll come back to leadership as we start to wind down a little bit, is that if you think of one leadership attribute that you see that's, on the top there, one of the number one leadership attributes that you value and that you model, what would that be?
Trust.
Uh-huh.
You can't lead without trust. It's while it sounds simple, it's not that simple, right? Mm-hmm. But trust, without your officers and the folks around you that trust, without trust, you're no good to them. They may do what you tell them to do, right? But that's all they're going to do. Okay. And they're going to do it because you told them to, right? But if you are able to build a level of trust from your folks, they'll not only will they accomplish a task or a mission, they're going to, they'll do it. And they'll find better ways to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't have all the answers. Honestly, mm-hmm. The best answers are closest to the ground, right? So if I could build that trust, that's key. Without trust, you can't lead. I'm convinced of that. Same with the community, right? I can't police this community without trust. The community, the minute we lose the community's trust, if you look at what's happened across this country, right, and you look at some of these stories and do some of these, in the FBI National Academy, we did a case study on Ferguson. That was all about trust, what happened there. Mm-hmm. All about trust. Everything from, and we could probably talk for an hour about that case, but it all comes back to trust, right? The police department stopped engaging the community, okay? And then they have an incident that happens and they stop communicating with it and they say, someone else is going to communicate with you. We're not going to communicate, okay? And then the city starts burning down. And then they walk in the neighborhood and say, hey, remember us? Like, trust takes time and effort. And if you're not doing that proactively every single day to try to build a community's trust, when something happens, it's not if. I mean, no community is immune from it. No police department is immune from that. It's that trust you've built over time that's going to get you through it. So, but if the community doesn't trust me, then there's no way I can succeed. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that goes internally as well. Kind of like what we talked about early on about, what we do externally, we also need to do internally. Trust is just as important outside this police department when it comes to leadership as it is inside this police department.
Mm-hmm. And how are you doing with that? How do you feel you're doing with that?
Well, I mean, I think I'm doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I try to assess it regularly. It's, we're going to be rolling out a community survey here soon. We just kind of finalized it. So we'll be sending that out with people's, with their bills.
Okay. Great. With their bills.
If their bill, hey, do a survey. No, I'm sorry. With the, I think it's with their water bill or something like that. They're going to send it out, so we get it to all the citizens. Mm-hmm. And so we'll get a lot of good feedback from that. So we'll get a good idea where we are trust-wise. I think internally we're in a pretty good spot. Again, it's only been 10 months, but what I'm starting to see, what is making me most proud, is people are making decisions on their own. And that comes down, and again, talking about going back to trust, people have to trust that they're allowed to make those decisions. People have to trust that they're allowed to make mistakes and not get their head stepped on about it, So what I'm starting to see people make decisions on their own. And to me, when we can get our entire agency feeling that they feel that they can make decisions and that they're going to be supported and they're not going to get screamed and yelled at for making a decision that might not be the right one every time, and I think we're in a really good spot. Mm-hmm. So, but I work every single day at building trust, at trying to build trust, because it's the number one thing in order to be, or number one attribute in order to be an effective leader.
Right. Well, the first time I met you just exude enthusiasm, and there's no doubt that you're on the real thing, authentic leader here. So I feel blessed that we've got you.
Well, I appreciate it. It's great working with you and everybody over there, and we just have a great community. I think we have something special here in Warrenton, so we'll continue to do it, and I think the future is really bright for us. So.
Oh, that's the perfect way to end, I think. Definitely.
Well, 2020 is over, right?
Yes, I agree.